again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters. This is Steve Wraith. It's a pre-recorded show. The professionals pre-recorded on Saturday, and it's welcome to Stu and to Mitch as always. How are you, lads?
Good,
well,
thanks.
good,
How
mate.
are you?
Yeah, good to see us. What top you got on, Stu?
It's Al Hilal top from last season because that was their sponsor last season, but they stopped sponsoring them this season, and the person who owns them owns Noon as well. So if you want to have a quote, Liam Kelly, join the dots.
Well, it segues nicely into something that I wanted to talk about. We touched on it briefly on the Amigos on Friday. Shirt sponsorship, lots of excitement building. Ben Jacobs was asked about it on the show on Saturday. What's your take? What are you hearing? What's the jungle drums saying in Bahrain?
Well, we've both been digging about Bahrain, Saudi and Dubai, and I don't think it'd be right to mention some of the names that have been mentioned if they're not going to be on the shirt. But the name that keeps bouncing back to me is this one, Emo, which is one of the world's biggest real estate companies. If anyone's been lucky enough to visit Dubai, once you land the airport and you're traveling to your destination, you'll see just Emo everywhere. They've got assets worth about $30 billion. So it's a very wealthy company. It is well known, particularly in the Middle East and the Far East. But they have expanded into Africa and they are looking to go into Europe as well. More Eastern Europe, to be honest. So the Serbia's, Bosnia, where I'm going next month, Croatia, that sort of area. So they are getting bigger and they have the money. That's the most important thing. And like we said, the owner owns many things, but Noon is one of them. So he's must be quite happy with the fact that the advertising that Noon's been on the side of our shirts, and why not put his main brand on the front?
Okay, Mitch, what's your thoughts? Obviously, we spoke briefly on Friday about it, but lots of people suggesting that it could be Noon. They might have put their hat in the ring. Saudi Airways, of course, we were talking about on Friday. Any more thoughts?
Well, yeah, like I said from Friday's show, I had a conversation with someone who'd actually introduced a company from the region to Newcastle United. With the potential to sponsor the front of the shirt. He was told there was already a deal on the table. He was also told to turn down Binance because they didn't feel that the whole cryptocurrency thing was representative of what they wanted to put on the front of the shirt in Newcastle United. So I thought that was interesting that they're thinking about positive associations with businesses. And that another interest that was firmly registered was from a retail stroke malls stroke real estate group. Now, you could interpret that as EMO. You could interpret that as another big group out here called Majid Al Fatim, who deal with a lot of the malls and a lot of the retail stuff out here. They're also big in the car dealership world over here as well. What this tells me, though, is piff are being clever. They could do it all on their own with associated businesses and spend their own money. And then you get into the murky world of, is it an associated company? Talking about values and talking about what somebody's prepared to pay. And of course, they're pulling out of their own pocket. We did suggest the smart move would be exactly this. Use regional links and businesses and associations to flex the muscle, to do more cooperation with more companies, to make effectively positions Newcastle United not just as Saudi Arabia's team, but as a team for the Gulf region. Even down to the fact where if we end up with, say, Emar on the front and Noon on the shirt sleeve, that's Saudi and Dubai together, which, frankly, will get up the nose of Abu Dhabi and Man City quite a lot. And it just shows how regionally these relationships are curious and complicated and delicate sometimes. But it's certainly, from a sponsorship point of view, a very smart move. And if it is Emar, they've obviously seen the value of having Noon on the shirt sleeve to turn around and say, well, actually, for 3 times more, I can stick myself 3 or 4 times more, I can stick myself on the front and get the same global reach and have the same impact within the Gulf that's had having Noon on the sleeve of the shirt. So it's you can see lots of reasons why that would work. And you can see lots of reasons why it would be a smart move for us from an FFP point of view going forward. And take away certain sticks that could be used to beat people with, because everybody seems to be blaming us for absolutely everything that's bad in football at the moment. And so if you kill them with kindness by saying, well, look, here's a regionally made bid, it's nothing to do with us, it's at the level we are happy with, it's at a level consistent with where we are at, and it makes a massive difference from it. These are the inroads into FFP that are so important forward to make.
I was going to mention FFP there, just before the detractors, Newcastle's detractors start digging. Noon is half owned by the chairman, Mohammed Al-Abad, who owns Emar, and it's half owned by PIF. So they've got business links already. But Emar is his own entity, and with the way Saudi are building, especially Riyadh, and you've got Neom and stuff like that, but Riyadh, they're looking to double its size in the next 7 years. There'll be plenty of bids to be tendered. And things like this curry favour, and that's something Mitch has alluded to many times in the past about helping each other out. So you've got people want to be associated with the success, and the 25 million that's been bandied around is what the sponsorship will be. If you look at how much the shirt sponsors are already in the league, that would place us 7th. So the top 6, or the cartel 6, corrupt 6, big 6, whatever way the wind's blowing, they're getting Man City at the top with 67.5 million, I believe, and then it drops down to like Tottenham on 40 million. So we're below that. So no one can complain that we're getting above our station too quick. But I'd be surprised if the agreement, if it is 25, isn't laced with caveats or incentives, shall we say. Okay, we'll give you this much extra if you get into that European competition, for that place. Come and do a pre-season tour around here, or when you have breaks, come and play in the region. And we all know, Mitch knows especially, that Newcastle have been using Dubai quite a lot over the last few years. So they're building the links there as well. So to me, it makes sense if it is Emar, then it's a clean company. It's got a huge reputation of delivering quality, and that's what we want to be synonymous with. We want to be linked with companies like that who have a global reputation of being the best in their field, and it's a win-win for them. They'll get their brand recognised more around the world. The people who are investing in the region, because it's not just people in Saudi and Dubai and Bahrain that buy property here. It's bought from all over the world, especially now Russia and the Far East. And when they see Emar emblazoned across the Champions League playing Newcastle United next season, then it gives it even more kudos and strength. So it's a marriage to me that's made in heaven. And hopefully it's the one that gets the green light. But there is other things to sponsor, isn't it? There's a standstill to sponsor. There's a training ground to sponsor. There's so much more that to generate good money, not just little things like tractor sponsorships and stuff.
Well, and that's what the conversation I had brought up. It was definitely the conversation that was had was, oh, by the way, if your people aren't interested in this, we've got training ground, we've got ground opportunities, we've got training kit opportunities. Lots of different things. And so they're exploring all of it. And that diversification and widening of the income streams is significantly important and clever. And like Stu says, this would mark, if it was EMAR, it marks a definite step in a direction of how they want to be. And the fact that they've knocked back something like Binance, who seem to be popping up on a lot of places recently, because they wanted to portray the right kind of relationships with Newcastle United in terms of sponsorships and how the names are shared. I think that's really highly significant. If people wanted to get an idea about what EMAR are and how big they are, Dubai Mall, they built it. If you come into Burj Khalifa, they built it. Most of the stuff in downtown's got EMAR emblazoned on the side of it. If you go down to Dubai Marina, most of the buildings have got EMAR emblazoned on the side of them. That's what we're talking about. That's the associations that they're looking to drive home, and I think it would be a significant one if it is indeed EMAR on the front of our shirt. Now, interestingly, the other tidbit I've heard is that some of the designs that are doing the rounds at the minute as mock-ups potentially from Castore. The black and white, there's a black and white home shirt which has got gold trim on it, and I can say EMAR in gold because that's the kind of colours they would use. I've been told that for the second kit, it's going to be the same kind of blue and gold combination, and I could see that with EMAR on it as well. And the green one sounds like that's nailed on to be the third kit this year. So again, I'm wondering if that's been done with this in mind or not.
Yeah, I would agree, lads. I mean, I've heard the same thing on the strips, but it'll be interesting. 25 million, Stu. Is that enough for you for shirt sponsorship, do you think?
Well, it's 4 times more than what they've been getting at the moment. So it's a step in the right direction. But as I said, I'm sure there'll be plenty incentive-related, I can't even think of the word now, things added into the deal. You know, because if Newcastle have been looking at the rates we've grown, if we sat here 2 years ago, there was a phrase that we used an awful lot, and that was Newcastle United was a ghost ship just drifting towards the championship, well, the obscurity of the championship and possibly beyond. And now we're like a super yacht, aren't we? We're just glistening in all our resplendent glory, cruising serenely towards the Champions League. And that's just in the space of 2 years. So you've got to think, well, where could they be in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Because we all know the aim of the PIF when they took over Newcastle United was to make sure that we were globally recognised as one of the best teams on the planet by 2030 for their Vision 2030, the 100-year celebration of Saudi Arabia. So yes, we're ahead of schedule, but that doesn't stop you going. You know, so it's things like this that will keep happening. You know, they'll just drop it in at the right time. Here we go. There's something I mentioned, I think, maybe more than a year ago, about a racetrack for motor racing, because they're very big on that in Saudi Arabia at the moment. And again, as Mitch just mentioned there, they're trying not to use their own brands, such as Aramco and stuff like that. You know, they don't want any fingers pointed at them, and probably the most commonly phrase we both used is they want to do it properly and come through the front door instead of trying to sneak in over the back fence and break a window and pop in the back door. So I think they're trying to stay clear from their own brands, which would have been very, very easy. But that, to me, that would have ignited or refueled the fires that are burning against us anyway. So if other companies like EMAR want to spend £25 million, they'll get value out of that. For sure, they'll get value out of that. You know, and it won't be long before they'll have like Newcastle-themed buildings here in the Middle East. You know, like a museum for Newcastle, interactive things, because that's what they are, especially in Dubai. If it's biggest, best, first, fastest, they want it. And Newcastle are quite rapidly becoming the best. So, like I said, the associations, the 25 million is a figure that's been banded around. It was a figure higher than the one that Mitch showed yesterday. Mitch, was it? Sorry, Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the other cup you mentioned, Alpha Team, that was 22. So that could even increase because nothing's been finalised yet. And also we know it has to go through their Premier League's approval system as well. So that's why, to me, I think they went in at a figure that the no will definitely be accepted. But I'm sure it'll increase as our presence globally increases as well.
Mitch, 25 million a year, as Stu's already said, is a hell of a difference to what we're getting at this moment in time. But some people I'm saying, that's not a great deal of money. I mean, I think a lot of people just say this for the crack and just to get a reaction. I mean, for me, it's a huge step up, and of course, it'll help the financial fair play situation that we're in at the moment.
We'll have to be realistic. The playing situation's chucked with 3 years ahead of stage. No, I don't think anybody could have predicted what we were going to do on the pitch this season. We've had to play this smart. We couldn't come in and say, right, there's 50 million a year for the shirt front from the PAF-owned company. Because one, Premier League will stamp their little feet and kick off about it. And two, that puts we're really just one step behind Man City in one fell swoop. The way they wanted to pitch the 20 to 25 million is basically above everybody else and at the bottom end of the so-called Big Six. And so where I think everybody probably would have expected us to be this season. The fact that we're now have knackered the time frame by being so bloody good on the pitch, we can't let that sort of allow the feelings about that overtake the financial plan. And the financial plan, as they've said all along, was being very carefully worked out and very carefully planned so things could go forward with as little fractious response from anybody as possible, even though there's still noise in the background going on even now, which is all for me is just a big distraction to keep everybody from sniffing around what's really going on with Man United's sale. And so, whilst Saudi still seems to be the big bad wolf, they've got to do everything right and proper, and I think that's the approach that they're sticking with, and quite right too, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times. There's no doubt about that. The Chief Executive Officer of Aston Villa, Stu, this week had his say. Just a long line of people, and the Ben Jacobs show on Saturday. I let Ben have his say, but I just said, how about this for an idea, Ben? Why don't we have transparency with all 20 Premier League clubs? Why don't we all lay down everything that's going on behind the scenes, everyone's skeletons out the cupboard? Why not get the media to champion that? And then we can all move on, because ultimately it seems to be a witch hunt, because Newcastle are gate crashing the top six and are going to be there for a long, long time. And, the opposition can't take it. Now we've got Aston Villa, who, in the grand scheme of things, are sitting in fifth place. They've had a decent run under Unai Emery. They beat us 3-0. Getting ideas above their station. And of course, Perslow's previous jobs on his CV include a team called Liverpool, for example. So, yeah, what did you make of that? Because it was so frustrating to hear again, and it makes him look a fool.
Well, I was working this morning, so I didn't see your show with Ben, but at least I know the one question that you asked him, because I reckon he would have took the hour to answer this. Because there's so much you could say about it, to be honest. But watching the interview, now who was the lady interviewed him? Was it Rigby or something?
Beth Rigby, who does to be fair, she's the political editor for Sky Sports. So she's going to be looking for a geopolitical answer. That was my take on it.
Yeah. Well, she could at least sit up when she's interviewing as well. But she was the person who was at the party with Kay Burley from Sky News, wasn't she, during lockdown? So, if you're talking about skeletons and cupboards and stuff like that, we'll forget about that, but we'll point the finger at Newcastle. But what Persloo kept saying, the way I watched it, I was actually laughing through most of it, because it was all assumptions. I can see, what if, maybe this. Let's get it right. If the PAF's fund is 1.4 trillion, that's trillion, that's 1,000 billion, right? Newcastle was bought for 300. So that's, if my maths are right, it's 0.0002% of their wealth. as what they spent on Newcastle United. Can you really see Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, saying, right, I want Eddie Howe on speed dial, and I'm going to tell him he needs to play Jacob Murphy up on the right wing from now on? They've got so much investment. This is where people get now reminded to think, okay, so the Saudis own Newcastle, they forget how much else they've got shares in, or percentages in, how much they actually own, and the real reason why they're investing. They don't get involved, and I've said so many times, they will employ the right people to do the right jobs. They don't get involved with it. The chairman comes, 3 or 4 times a year? You know, so yes, they have telephones, yes, they have Skype, yes, they have many modes of contact, but they don't get involved with someone like Darren Eales. He'll know his remit, he'll know his boundaries. Same with Dan Ashworth. This is what you've got to do. They've employed the best people to go and do what they're meant to do. And they don't get involved. Their job is, in the whole grand scheme of things, is to put the money in and to back it financially and make sure the clubs run correctly on the right financial footing. And if there is mistakes made in the transfer market, let's say we go and splurge 200 million next season and we're sitting where Chelsea's sitting now, there'll be a change within the structure within Newcastle. Absolutely, they expect growth, and that's what they pay for. So the way personal was going on, it sounded really born out of jealousy more than anything else. You know, there was too many assumptions in it. Too many of the times he was wanting to point the finger elsewhere. And if you go into it too much, if I do remember rightly, the part owner of Aston Villa is Egyptian, who have an impeccable human rights record if they want to go knocking on these doors. Not. You know, so there's so many people wanting to throw stones at our ever-growing, shall we say, skyscraper that my dad often refers to or referred to. They keep wanting to throw stones at it. Now our skyscraper is becoming the Burj Khalifa, which is the biggest building in the world. So we just have to dust it down. There'll be plenty more coming out the cupboard. There was a thing earlier today, we'll say yesterday because the show's on Sunday, about they trying to stop promotion in the women's football. You know, and it's not even corrupt. It's not even hiding now. That they're just showing that it's greed, and it's something that I know George said. It's pure greed. Where is the incentive to try to grow women's football, to try and get it to catch up with the scale of the men's football, and then to have a closed shop this early in the you know, it's too much. It's in its infancy. They want to say you can't get promoted or relegated from that league. Well, surprisingly, I think Tottenham are at the bottom of that league, aren't they? So once again, we swing back round to our friend at Tottenham. And Mr. Levy, shall we call him, because I don't think he deserves a full title. Even his own fans aren't happy with him. So they come out with ideas that really sometimes I think it's the old saying, throw enough shit at the wall and some might stick. Like the way Todd Bowley was saying, have a superstars game or a North versus South, and sometimes they just need to engage the mouth before they speak. You know, the brain's running away with all these ideas, and they just open it up and out it comes. You know, they've got to look at the impact, and if you try to stop women's football growing, it would kill it. And it's all because Newcastle are 3-4 leagues below them. Is it really? Are we really that threatened? Is there that much money sloshing around women's football at the moment that they're scared Newcastle are going to get promoted for a couple of years? It's mind-boggling how they live in this ivory tower where they think they're untouchable. And I always hark back to when they tried the European Super League and you had the fans of Chelsea, etc. I thought they were magnificent that day, the way they went against it, because they would have benefited for sure from being in it. But proper football fans wouldn't. And someone like Burso, he should know better. That's the disappointing thing. He should actually know better than come out with tripe, because that's all it was. I will repeat the word assumptions, because it was. He knew nothing for a fact, and it was just mischief making. And really, if Newcastle were that way inclined, they could actually sue him for defamation of character. They really could. but I don't think we should give him any more space. He's blown his hand. He's went all in on 5-high, and he's lost. I think he's embarrassed himself more than anything else.
Mitch, I got your views on Friday's show with regards to that. What do you think about my response to Ben about getting all the skeletons out of the cupboard? Keith, of course, went all in and said, take us to court. But I just think it would be very interesting if there had to be transparency at every football club, because I bet you there'd be a few people sweating then.
Yeah, you too bloody right, I would. Look, we've already got, and we spoke about Crystal Palace being part owned by a Delaware company, under which you don't have to declare who the directors actually are. What if one of them's a bloody war criminal? What if that was to come out? That would make them look stupid. Make the Premier League look stupid as well. Not for a moment suggesting it is, but we don't know. As Stu says, of course, the part owns Aston Villa by an Egyptian billionaire, and 10 years in the Middle East makes me think of one word that I can apply to many Egyptian billionaires, unfortunately, and it's not a particularly nice word. You could dig around some of the clubs where there's been injection of money from people like Usmanov. Go to Everton and see really what's going on with Mashori. Usmanov, is he still connected to the club in any way, shape or form? Bet he is. Because he's entangled in so much of Mashori's other businesses. To absolutely untangle him would be very, very difficult indeed, in my opinion. And maybe that's why they've referred the FFP case with them to an independent body rather than dealing with it themselves, because it seems that the Premier League are absolutely impotent when it comes to applying their own rules. They've got a list of 100 charges against Man City over a 5 or 6 year period. That's gone quiet again, hasn't it? Which rather large lumpy carpet has that been swept under? There's all sorts going on and has been everywhere for years. And I think if you were to make a full transparency case for a lot of Premier League clubs, I think you're right. I think there'd be a lot of backsides twitching like rabbits' noses all over the place. Because sadly, when you move into that level of finance and that level of monetary involvement, there'll be dodgy deals somewhere along the line, somewhere with somebody. And I think it's getting really, really tired to have us wheeled out as the big bad wolf. And I come back to my thoughts about the timing. The timing of this is once again done as a distraction to what's really going on with this farcical sale of Man United, as the bids have gone in for the third time. As one's flounced off already and said his bid's on the table, why does he have to go through this again? Whereas one party are saying they want all the club for a smaller amount than what the Glazers have valued it at, and another one saying he wants partial control of the club for about the same amount of money and leave the Glazers with partial ownership. And then you've got the other interested parties, how many of them we don't know, who were told, well, no, you don't need to bother with this third round because you don't want to buy all of it. You just want to take a stake in the club. I mean, it's just a farce. It's an absolute farce. And it seems to be that anything that the Rain Group does for the Premier League, see also Chelsea's sale, is riddled with mystery, smoke, mirrors, and multiple standards. And while all that's going on, it makes a lot more sense for them to wheel out the big bad wolf of Saudi Arabia and have everybody on the media talking about that than talking about potentially one of the real issues, which is this, let's make no bones about it, the farcical sale of one of the biggest clubs in the world, certainly in Europe and certainly in the UK. And the way that sale's being handled is nothing short of a disgrace, in my opinion. And it deserves full investigation to the highest level, far more than ours ever did. And it won't. Whatever they decide, it'll just breeze through.
It was never doubted where Newcastle or PAF had the money. That was never questioned, was it? Because
No.
everyone knows PAF have
Does
the money.
everybody knows?
But there's the big question: Does Jassim have this money? And it's quite clear he hasn't. So where's it coming from? And this is where they said, "Oh, look," and then you'll get the same old journalists putting out saying Newcastle got accepted, we should get accepted, or Man United should get accepted. You know what I mean? They'll say Man United will be we, but they don't look at the bigger picture. They've never pulled up any human rights things, and it's lazy. It's just pointing at Newcastle. But we are robust and resolute enough just to ignore it now.
They've never even tried to prove that this 9-2 foundation is anything other than a figment of Sheikh Jassim's imagination.
Yeah.
It has. If you're telling me there's a fund out there that's worth 7 billion plus, and it doesn't have a digital presence, it doesn't have a physical presence, it doesn't have an office with a phone in it anywhere, and you can't find it, and the only references to it are since February when it was first mentioned by Sheikh Jassim.
And who funded said foundation?
Exactly. And so it's an absolute mess. And while this is ongoing, they don't want people talking about it. So what's it easier to talk about? Oh, us.
What's your thoughts, Stu, on a potential stadium sponsor? Because I've seen a bit of that flying around at the moment. Do you think shirt sponsorship first, which is likely to be announced, in due course over the next couple of months, I would have said, and then a stadium sponsor, or how do you see that working?
I think they'll maximise every marketable opportunity they can, and they've built up enough goodwill in short space of time. They understand it's St James's Park. They understand that's where people want the game to play, but we can't always be linked or hang on to history, if we need to grow. So there's a stadium sponsor there. It'll still be St James, and for example, it could be, I don't know, use Emar as an example. Emar, St James's Park. But there's a stand that's desperately sitting there. The East Stand, or the new stand, or the old stand, depends how long you've been supporting Newcastle. The East Stand, where it's got Newcastle United written on, they could easily put advertising on there, and they could call that the Emar stand. So you can have a stand sponsorship, you can have a stadium sponsorship, there's a training ground sponsorship. There's so much that would generate massive income. For example, if you look at the Emirates, that's called, the Arsenal's ground is called the Emirates because it's a brand new stadium. They have to look to merge whichever name they will put into Newcastle with St James. They understand the heritage and the history, and they don't want to rock the boat too much. But we as fans have to start understanding that to progress, these things will have to happen. Now, whether it be I don't know, if you did a straw poll, would you want the stadium to be renamed or a new stadium built called St James Park? It'd be very interesting to see what come back. I think most people would lean towards an expanded St James Park with a new name attached to it, although it still have St James in the title somewhere, rather than build a shiny new stadium somewhere else in the city, where I think that's what's long-term might have to be the answer regardless anyway. We are growing at such a rate of knots. We are growing faster on the pitch than the way off the stand, which is reminiscent of what happened during the Keegan era. But this has sustainability. And if we are wanting 60, 70,000 every week, and we are a team competing at the top end, we are capable of getting 60 to 70,000 every week. And that extra revenue goes back into the team, it goes back into making the club better, back into making the club stronger. So it's 2 or 3 different discussions rolled into one, isn't it? It's do we have a new stadium, or at the moment, short term, rename the stadium, rename a stand, get as much money as you can to get us to try and at least compete, not even on an even keel, but a bit behind them. But because we are much better run than others, and we're travelling forward without fear, where others are looking over the shoulders with trepidation, we're in a stronger position than just about every team in the league. I would say all bar Man City. I think every other team now is fearful, and that's where you get the Aston Villa CEO coming out with stupid comments. Klopp started at the start of the season. they've all took turns referencing Newcastle, and we haven't even finished the season yet. So imagine what's coming. Can't wait.
Mitch, time to get a stadium sponsor? Is it too soon yet, or do you think it'll happen in next year or so?
I think everything's on the table, and I think if it's true that they've knocked back violence for the shirt because they want to be careful about the relationships they portray with Newcastle United, the naming of the ground and ground naming rights, effectively St James's Park is one of the jewels of the crown. And so the naming rights would have to be, I think, quite spectacular or special. And I think if the right partner come along, they would go for it. It's a different era now. Let's imagine an alternative history, Steve. That day that me and Steve Hasty were coming into St James's Park as you were being escorted out of it down the escalator. Imagine if on that day we'd all been invited in the three were together to speak to our friend Derek. And one of the topics of conversation was, we've got this idea about naming the ground. Can we get you guys to talk to the fans and get some opinions and feedback into us before we start to announce it? That would have been taken far better than, we've sacked your manager and we've renamed the ground. Get on with it. Fuck you. Because that's effectively what he did. on a international break weekend, so he had 2 weeks to let everything calm down. Hadn't even told the press officer. She was getting phone calls as the trucks arrived with the crowbars to peel the name off the wall. Didn't have a clue what was going on. Like many things in the Ashley era, often the idea or the premise was not the bad thing. It was the way it was done and handled. And one thing for sure is naming rights at St James's Park, I think there's a majority of fans have come to understand over time that it's a potential stream of income, one that the owners don't have to put their hands in their pockets for, and one that enhances the sustainability of the club going forward. And I think a lot more fans understand that. I think it would always have St James's Park attached to the name. I think nearly everybody would call it St James's Park, whatever. We wouldn't have one of these awful, stupid press insistences the way they did that, and then insisted the BBC called it the Sports Direct Arena all the time. The only clever thing that happened was when Wonga come in and said, we're going to take the rights and we're going to call it St James's Park. That was a clever move, PR move on their part, to be fair to them. But no, I think the owners understand that the name of the ground, they're dealing with one of the crown jewels, and it has to be handled respectfully and carefully. And I think it will be, and I think we'll make a tidy little penny on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be it'll be when it be, and it'll be a move that the supporters will go for. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, we're banking on Champions League. Stu, you've been very positive about the Champions League all the way through the season, and I remember before the Carabao Cup final, you were saying, why not win both? A lot of people were just saying one or the other. You were saying, why not win both? But as we edge ever closer in the next couple of weeks, we could cement our place in the Champions League. We've talked about transfers and the transfer window. We're now starting to be linked with the likes of Diaby again, James Maddison. To name but two. Scott McTominay is a name that won't go away. Is there any new names that you're hearing that Newcastle might be linked with? Are they looking for experience? Do you think more experienced players? Do you think there'll be bigger name players who want to come to Newcastle now that they're in the once they're in the Champions League?
Definitely. And I would say that we will get Champions League. It's just whether it's third or fourth, and the way things are going at the moment. This weekend's round of fixtures are fantastic. There's the ones battling for the Europa League spots are playing each other. Man United have got Aston Villa and Liverpool have got Tottenham. And the last time I checked, all four of them can't win. So that's going to have a knock-on effect with us, which hopefully we should really be beating Southampton. That will solidify our place in the Champions League. That has to excite any footballer worth his salt. And Eddie Howe's made it quite clear in a few of his press conferences when he's been asked about this. He's talking about elite players who will improve the squad. He doesn't need squad fillers. The players playing now, some of these will become squad fillers. So 3 or 4, maybe 5 players, but I think at least one of those will be a youth player along the lines of young Harrison Ashby. They need to look at the whole picture. But I can see us making 3 really good quality signings, and I still believe Madison's the main target. It's someone they've pursued for at least 2 windows. Leicester are struggling, and even if they do manage to stay up, I can't see any player worth their salt with the European Championship coming up thinking, right, I want to flounder around the bottom end of the league and stay here, or I want to play in the Championship. I think he would walk to Newcastle. Madison and they will be more willing to sell, because if they know he's going to leave anyway, they can't offer him what we can as in league position at the moment. And I don't think they're going to break the bank and offer him too much salary-wise either. I think Madison is the main target. I still think we need a left-back, and I don't need to mention who my preference is for left-back. And I think that's a doable deal as well. And you start looking, as we've, over the last 5, 6, 8 games, we've lost 1. But this winning run, it's like they call it the run into the end of the season, or squeaky bum time, or everything else that gets referenced to. But this is where I think our players grasped the nettle and said, "Do you know what? I want to be part of this team." And so many of them have raised their games now. The praise, and quite rightly, that's been lavished on the renaissance of Joe Linton, of Joe Willock, of Almiron this season, of Sean Longstaff. All these players were, either totally the worst we'd ever seen. In the case of Joe Linton as a centre forward, now he's one of the best midfield players in the whole country. But we can't expect that sort of change to happen in every player. So where would you put these new players in? They would have to be special to displace the way they're performing at the moment. And I think the 2 positions for me that are up for grabs where we could improve would be left back and the right attacking side where Madison plays. So you've got Madison and Tierney to come in. That would improve our first team. No doubt about it. It would improve our first team, which in turn then makes our squad stronger if the Almirons or Murphys and Burns and Targets are then on the bench, because they've been performing magnificently this season. But again, we keep using sentiment. You can't have it. You've got to keep moving forward. And I keep seeing people saying we need a defensive midfielder. Do we really? I'm not sure we do. I think Joe Linton could do that job if that was what they needed. The fact that we're going to be in possession more often than not in the majority of games going forward now, do we need someone to sit back England style? No. Bruno could do that, and you could have the people running around him. So the Longstaff, is he worth a place in the team? The way he's performed this season, yes. If they get someone better, it's not going to be cheap, is it? So that McTominay is not playing better than what Longstaff is. By anyone's imagination, he's not playing at the same level as Longstaff. So if McTominay does come, that would just be to sit on the bench to play the odd European game when we've already qualified for the next round, or play the League Cup games, give the players a rest. But spending 30 million on him, yes, spending 50 million on someone like Scott McTominay to not play, that's not how this club does it. They'll be spending money, that sort of figures, on people who could walk straight in the first team. And I think they'll get Madison for 50 million this summer. I really do.
What's your thoughts, Mitch, on the impending transfer window? And of course, getting linked with names aplenty, and we'll have a lot of time over the summer to talk about it. But we're certainly going to go for bigger and better players going into the Champions League. And we might find some big names who we could have only dreamed of this time last year will be getting their agents to ring St James's Park.
I think we are. There's a lot of things that you could sell Newcastle United to a player on within the entire structure of the club, the direction it's going in, the reaction of the fan base. And I think as fans, we need to be more open-minded on transfers, less rigid thinking. You hear people saying, we want a 6, we want a number 8, we want this, we want that. Any system seems to rely on fluidity and versatility and interchanging of players. So you don't want to be somebody who's just a midfield destroyer. because there isn't in that the way he plays the three midfielders. It doesn't work like that. It's not as fixed as that. It's not as rigid as that. I also think we need to be prepared for the odd surprise, and I think there will be. And I genuinely can't see any footballer worth his salt not wanting to come and step onto that pitch at St James's Park for a season. The way the trajectory that we're on, and you look at what we're doing as fans inside the ground, and the buzz that everybody seems to be bouncing off, and it's this whole synergy thing that when the club and the city and the community are in alignment, by God, it's a powerful force for attraction. And I think we are going to have a mix of exciting young talent, possibly in some established talent on the way up, and maybe the odd big name sprinkled in there.
Hey Mitch, remember when we signed Isaac and people were saying who? You only scored 6 goals last year and stuff. What a waste of money. Now he's a bargain. So the people know what they're doing. They know exactly who they want and what role they want. And as he's just said, he can play more than one role.
It's like we said earlier this week on one of the WhatsApp chats we had. Who would have thought of it? Putting football people into football positions and let them do their job. Who would have thought that would work as a football club? You know.
Got to ask you just for your opinions, Stu, because sometimes the way it falls, you miss out on some of the midweek games. Just that Everton performance, because we come from the Spurs game where we blitzed Spurs in that opening 20 minutes. Game was completely out of way. But I mean, the Everton game was slightly different, wasn't it? I mean, Everton came at us with our game plan. They pressed and pushed and harried and harassed, but they just couldn't cope with Newcastle. And as soon as we got that goal, which I don't think anybody minded to say it was slightly against the run of play, Newcastle then just woke up and went into overdrive again. And that run from Isaac, which he's so unfortunate not to get the assist, was like something out. It was like watching somebody on a PlayStation where you're playing against somebody without a control, wasn't it? It was just bizarre. And I mean, he's just going to get better and better. But yeah, give us your views on the Everton game, Stu.
Well, the Isaac dribble would have been the best assist of all time, I reckon. And I know I said Willock before was the best assist, but Willock's pass there's a pass and the dribble. There's two different things here, both creating fantastic goals. But Isaac, Joe Linton, I thought he was magnificent. He didn't react to the provocation, and it was quite clear in their game plan. Let's get him booked. Let's try and get him sent off. And he was kicked. And he didn't get the protection of at least 3 or 4 times. So was Bruno, but he's used to that now. And at the time, Joe Linton showed his maturity. And I think since his wife's had this baby, that's been the making of him as a person. He's matured. He's become a man. He understands his responsibilities and he follows his instructions to the letter on the pitch. And he grew with the game. So did Joe Willock, who started the game very slowly. But once he's got such an engine on him, but he never stops running. And at the end of the 90 minutes, he was still gnashing about like no one's business. But you get the Joe Linton's, Isaacs, Wilson's goal, fabulous. These will quite rightly get the accolades and the plaudits, but to me, our man of the match was Botman. He's had a few ricks in his armory over the last 2 months. But yeah, I thought on Thursday he was back to his Imperial's best, and he was unruffled. He was cool, calm, collected. Everything that we thought he was earlier in the season, he's back. And the confidence running through that team, even when Everton were pushing, we expected that. They had a lot of energy, nervous energy, and it was a case of weathering the storm. They'll burn themselves out. They will tie themselves out as long as they don't get the first goal. And we got one just before half time, seconded them. They come out and huffed and puffed as much as they could for the start of the second half, but then the class took over, and the changes were made at the right time because Target had played well, but he was blowing out his backside as his number come up. Almiron looked a bit match rusty, where you've got someone like Murphy who's probably playing the best football of his career at the moment. He's come on full of confidence, and it just gives us that impetus, and that it's, you know, you start watching Steve and you think, right, we've got the best owners, we've got probably one of the best coaching staff, some of the best players, one of the best stadiums. We've got a PR team that we can be proud of. We've got a social media team that are performing exceptionally well. We've got a photographer. We've even got like Jacob Murphy being his own meme king now, isn't he? Every game he's producing something that, you know, we've got every reason to be proud of this club. And the way they took them apart, they dismantled them. That you could see the soul leaving Everton as the game went on in the second half, and the soul was leaving quicker than the fans. And for what they were all about with the flares and all the marches and protests they were having, the place was empty. We can relate to that. We've been there as Newcastle fans when Everton were consistently thrashing us back in the mid to late 80s. It's our turn now, and it was, you know, you're sitting watching, and even at 0-0 when they're having the odd half chance, we look composed, and it was never in doubt. You're not worrying, you're not panicking, oh, they're going to sneak this 1-0 as it might have happened 2 or 3 years ago. It was a game where we just said, right, if that's your best, we're going to start playing now. You've kicked us as much as you can, you've had your shots from long range, that's it. Now this is how to play football, and this is why we're good at the Champions League, and they took over. It was brilliant to watch the second half. It was really, really brilliant.
Talking about kicking, Mitch, your dad mentioned something on our WhatsApp group, didn't he? Which I've got to be honest, I missed. Oh, yeah. And this was the old T-Rex in goal. Apparently, when Gordon came on, motioning to people, allegedly, I've got to be honest, I haven't seen it, but motioning towards these players about get stuck into him and give him a kicking.
Right, pointed at him.
Yeah, I need to have to maybe have a look back for that because I missed it myself. But I mean, of all the antics you get out of him, he's trying to roll Longstaff off the pitch. Was bang out of order as well. But I mean, what do you expect from a short-arm seagull lover? Who knows? He always seems to just lose it when it comes to playing against us. And that for a professional footballer is quite unusual. If he has made gestures like that, that's beneath contempt. It's beneath contempt, really, for a professional footballer to motion that about another professional. No matter what the history, no matter what's going on. And I thought Gordon, for his part, handled himself fantastic. What a very different look for him to the petulance he let fly being taken off at Brentford, you know. I thought he handled himself beautifully and with a bit of dignity, and that's certainly not what Pickford did.
Did you see it, Stu?
Yeah, he's come out of his box like probably about 35, 40 yards out, and he's shouting at the player, pointing the corner, and he's motioning with his foot to kick him. And then I would like to say, in his defence, he was playing to the crowd, but the crowd had left by then anyway. So it just shows that the guy does have a screw loose, as Mitch just said there. When he's playing against Newcastle, he loses it. And he was dropped, wasn't he? He was dropped.
He was dropped by someone.
The guy was Ancelotti dropped him.
Yes.
Because he says he's not got the right mentality, but it just shows you don't have to be intelligent to be a footballer. And you must understand, that's England. This is not a Scotland-England thing, but that's England's supposedly #1 goalkeeper. You would never see someone like Nick Pope doing that. And it had nothing to do with football. That was just because he was getting a bit of barracking from the Newcastle supporters, and he just couldn't handle it. And, you know, why aren't the Premier League looking at this? I'll forward it to you on the WhatsApp group. You'll see exactly what it is. Why aren't the Premier League looking at that and saying that to me that's inciting the crowd?
That's retrospective, isn't it? It should be looked at.
Yeah, it's definitely retrospective.
It's the first I'd heard of it when George mentioned it, to be fair.
Yeah. No, it was. There was a couple of cameras, one from both of them from the Newcastle end, and one of them zoomed in, and you could actually see him doing it and pointing the Gordon, and then his players kick him. And he's like, oh, come over there, kick. Terrible. It really is. It's the professional is probably too polite a phrase for it or a word for it. It's something that to me, he should be banned for it. He should get a 5 or 6 game ban, and then he can start his new season in the Championship when his team gets relegated.
Okay, Newcastle United take on Southampton. 2:00 kick-off today at St James's Park. The game is sold out. 1,700 tickets sold by Southampton, which meant there was a little bit more space in SJP for Newcastle fans. ASM, well, he's unavailable, but we didn't get the usual press conference from Eddie Howe, as he did it straight after the win at Goodison Park. Anthony Taylor, referee in the game, second game of the season at St James's Park after the 2-0 defeat by Liverpool when Pope was sent off. VAR is Robert Jones, and Southampton got more points on the road than they have at home, but we've only got 24 points. They're rock bottom. Newcastle United hoping to continue their good form today. We'll just have a quick listen to Toon Stato before we speak to Stu and Mitch to finish the show and get quick predictions.
Hello guys, what incredible couple of last games. I'm running out of stats, or actually the stats are so many that a couple of minutes are not enough. The team is flying. We have 62 points from 32 games, and we have had only one season with better points tally after 32 games. Is the legendary 95-96 season in the Premier League, when we had 67 points after the 32 games. You might remember that we finished at 78. If we win our last remaining 6 games, we are on course to finish with 80, which can be our best ever season in the Premier League out of 38 games and in total. When it comes to away games, we have already won 8, and we have done so only in 3 previous seasons, back in 93-94, when we played in total 21 games, 2001-2002, and 2011-2012. We still have 3 away games remaining, so we might as well beat our best ever performance of 9 wins in a season. When it comes to goals, we have scored 29 goals away from home so far after the Everton demolishment, and so far the record was 27 in 2 seasons, 2011-12 and 2002-2003. When it comes to Southampton, we've already beaten them 3 times this season, and they might become the first club we beat 4 times in a single season for a long time. I need to check since when, but the funny thing is that it will be the 3rd manager that faces us in Ruben Selles. We've already beaten the Saints with Ralph Hasenhüttl in his last game for them, and twice with Nathan Jones in the League Cup. So, a legendary season in the making. Let's enjoy it. Away the lads. Up the Champions League we will go.
Good stuff as always from Andre. Stu, how do you see this game going against Southampton?
If there's a gimme in football, I think this would be it, but you have to be careful because Arsenal would have thought the same just a week or so ago, wouldn't it? But I can't say anything other than a comprehensive Newcastle win. And I know that he's been getting excited with his 5-1s and everything else. And I've seen you say on the Amigos that you're going to have the same bet. Message me earlier and says he's going for 8-0. He's going for the biggest win.
I'm going for 10-0.
Yeah,
I've put a quid on.
Yeah, but the 8-0 is the score that we got with Bobby Robinson's first game on it, and Shearer got 5. So he reckons that we can match that. I don't think it will get as many as that, but trying to guess Eddie Howe's team now is just mental. You score 2 goals, you seem to get dropped, don't you? So who he starts with, but no one's going to complain. And I think this could be the game. If Bruno is carrying an injury, it could be the game to rest him. I just wish we were playing Arsenal this Sunday, because I think would wipe the floor with them. They'll be so down after getting the backsides handed to them against Man City. The last thing they would have needed would have come to us, but we'll just have to see that for next week. Southampton, realistically, if they look at their running, I don't think they'll be expecting to get points from this game. They'll be targeting other games. Ward-Prowse is carrying an injury, so would they play him? He got taken off injured. Are they going to even risk playing him when they need him for games, more winnable games? Again, everything points to a comfortable home win. And how many times has this happened and it's blown up in our face? That's the Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? But I'm going for 4-0.
Okay, we had the lucky dice on Friday, Mitch, but we do give you the option when we manage to get you before a game to give your own prediction. How do you see it going? Are you as positive as everybody else?
We put the work in, the result should look after itself. It's that simple. Southampton, I watched them against Arsenal. They gave Arsenal a good game and they ran out of steam. So they're another one that show that they can try, but when push comes to shove, they don't have 90 minutes of high energy in the locker. And if we put the kind of work rate we put in and don't come out complacent, and as a crowd, I think we need to let the team relax. If we're not 1-0 up after 15 minutes, don't get twitchy. Just relax. The result will look after itself. And I think as long as we can put the shift in, we'll get the points. I'm not going to say we're going to continue this ridiculous vein of form scoring. I'll take 2-0 and be happy with it.
Okay, great stuff, lads. As always, good to spend some time with you. Look forward to seeing you both next week. Enjoy the game, enjoy your beers, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Take care, lads.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria. These sauces are really hot stuff. You can order them by emailing info@mrvickies.co.uk or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Neil and the guys at Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button tonight. It is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. If you want to join the channel, hit join. There's 3 different tiers. Pick the one that suits you and help support the channel financially. If you want to pay a one-off membership fee of £25 and get these goodies, a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to NUFC Matters and look for membership pack. Failing that, get your smartphone and put it over the QR code and it will take you straight there. We're also a podcast and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make a virtual donation today at the Matchday Bucket, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you can make a deposit today. Don't forget to enter the Shearer raffle. There's 150 tickets, £1 per ticket, and you can win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. If you have a look on our website, we've also got a vast range of mugs, t-shirts, cups, and whatever else takes your fancy. The Isaac t-shirt is proven popular this month, $16.99 plus delivery from nufcmatters.com. Don't forget as well, we do a range of events over the course of the year. We have Peter Beardsley, an up-close and personal evening at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Limited tickets remain, 25th of April. Get them now from Surf Cafe, tynemouth.co.uk or from ticketweb.uk. There's also an evening with Peter Beardsley on May the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and you can get tickets from newcastlelegends.com and tickets are £50. Don't forget our end of season do takes place 27th of May, 7 o'clock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that one are a tenner, and nufcmatters.com is where you can get your tickets for that. In June, Thursday, the 1st of June to be precise, Rob Lee will be at Louis Liquor Store in the Big Market in Newcastle, and tickets for that are available direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford takes place the next evening on Friday, the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is a charity event and tables are of £10, £700, and you can book them by contacting Natalie at heelandtour.org.uk or visiting their website. In July, Gavin Peacock is in Newcastle on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are available from nufcmatters.com. And he also takes an evening with at the Surf Cafe in Tynemouth on the 11th of July. So get your tickets direct from the venue for that one as well. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions Ricky Hatton, Frank Bruno, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe takes place at the Fed, and that will be taking place on the 16th of June. More dates to be added. Tickets from all those events, www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk.